आदर्श चीज हुई थी, राजनयिक पहल थी श्री हर्षवर्धन श्रृंगला के नेतृत्व में, जिसमें क्या आवश्यक एवं सकारात्मक प्रभाव प्रदर्शित करती हुई पहल की गई है। गरीबों के लिए भोजन उपलब्ध कराने के लिए भारत के सहयोग की सराहना करते हुए एवं इस सहायता कार्य में भाईचारे की तरह हाथ बढ़ाते हुए पाकिस्तान ने इस मानवीय राहत सहायता पैकेज को अफगानिस्तान में आपूर्ति करने में सहयोग करके सराहनीय एवं सम्माननीय पहल किया है। जहां तक विगत सप्ताह में रूस एवं यूक्रेन के मध्य तनावपूर्ण स्थिति को लेकर अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर पहले रूस, चीन, फ्रांस द्वारा त्रिपक्षीय वार्ता के बाद यूक्रेन से फ्रांस ने भी वार्ता की पहल की। इसके बाद 18, 19 एवं 20 फरवरी को म्यूनिच सिक्योरिटी कॉन्फ्रेंस आयोजित करके समझौता के मुद्दों को चिन्हित एवं आत्मसात करने के लिए बहुपक्षीय मंच प्रदान किया गया। इसके बाद आज सुबह संयुक्त राष्ट्र सुरक्षा परिषद की बैठक में संवाद आधारित मध्यस्थता की बात की गई। इसके बाद जर्मनी की फोर्स भी यूक्रेन की ओर उन्मुख हुआ। ब्रिटेन ने आर्थिक प्रतिबंध लगाने की बात कही। अमेरिका ने भी युद्ध की आशंका जताई। एक रिपोर्ट में रूस के माननीय राष्ट्रपति पुतिन ने केजीबी के अध्यक्ष के साथ पड़ोसी राष्ट्र के साथ उसकी स्वायत्तता एवं स्वतंत्रता का आदर करने की इच्छा व्यक्त की। ऐसे में रूस द्वारा अपने सोवियत संघ रूस की गरिमा का सम्मान करते हुए यूक्रेन की मांग के अनुसार जरूरी उत्पादों की आपूर्ति या आर्थिक सहायता पैकेज ऑफर किया जा सकता है। इस परिस्थिति में यूक्रेन के मौन रहने से नाटो, यूरोपियन यूनियन, रूस एवं वैश्विक नेतृत्वकर्ताओं के समक्ष असमंजस यानी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट अर्थात संकल्पनात्मक दोलन परसेप्चुअल ऑस्किलेशन की तनावपूर्ण स्थिति बनी रह सकती है। उधर विश्व स्वास्थ्य संगठन ने भी वायरस वेरिएंट के एवं इनके प्रसार के खतरों को चिन्हित किया है। ऐसे में अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मानवतावादी संगठनों द्वारा सहायता कार्यों की आपूर्ति से वैश्विक नेतृत्व के ध्यान के विचलित होने की भी संभावना है। अतः व्यक्तिगत तौर पर एक आम आदमी के नाते अपने देश द्वारा अफगानिस्तान में खाद्य पदार्थों की आपूर्ति करने के मांग आधारित आपूर्ति, डिमांड ओरिएंटेड सप्लाई, आवश्यकता आधारित आपूर्ति, नीड ओरिएंटेड सप्लाई की पहल सराहनीय लगी। वर्तमान परिप्रेक्ष्य में इस तरह के शांति एवं भाईचारे को प्रोत्साहित करने वाले डिप्लोमेटिक मॉडल से संकल्पनात्मक प्रभाव मूल्यांकन कंसेप्चुअल इम्पैक्ट इवैल्यूएशन के आधार पर इस तरह के पहल से सकारात्मक प्रभाव के प्रति विश्वास एवं इनके सतत तौर से शांति स्थापित रहने की भरपूर संभावना प्रतीत हुई। ध्यातव्य है कि विगत सप्ताह में विश्व व्यापार संगठन, विश्व स्वास्थ्य संगठन एवं विश्व बौद्धिक संपदा संस्थान एवं विश्व स्वास्थ्य संगठन और कॉमनवेल्थ के मध्य समझौता भी हुआ था। As the concerns expressed by the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights, Mrs. Michelle Bachelet, and Ukraine humanitarian demand of $119 million are focal points of communication and contribution in this regard would resolve the burning issues related with dispute or conflict resolution. It would facilitate to resolve the apple of discord before it gets ripe. एंड इससे रिलेटेड जो रिपोर्ट्स हैं लाइक ऑनरेबल सेक्रेटरी जनरल क्या बोल रहे हैं, यूरोपियन यूनियन सेंसिटिव मॉनिटरिंग कर रही है प्रोग्रेस को इस रिगार्ड में एंड अपडेट को फॉलो किया गया था। यूनाइटेड नेशन स्टेटमेंट रिलीज किया गया था रिजोल्यूशन ऑफ द इश्यूज को लेकर के। अब इसमें यूक्रेन रशिया इशू रिजॉल्व की बात करते हैं, इसकी संभावना रख सकते हैं लाइक यूक्रेन वुड बी ऑफर फाइनेंशियल aid and other required resources to meet their urgencies. Russian Federation, European Union, United Kingdom, Germany and USA probably contribute in appropriate proportion through constitution or mediation of financial institutions to Ukraine. The global order of governance would sincerely pay attention to review and resolve the consequences caused by Omicron. The new statement are released from World Health Organization are as follows. World Health Organization briefing on establishment of the pharmaceutical production company in Asian region would reduce the transportation cost and ensure timely delivery of the drugs and vaccines to the needy nations. And the United Nations Special Session to resolve the issue related with peace reconciliation was organized. And cordially gratitude to Honorable Secretary General to emphatically carrying the genuine humanitarian concerns and appealing the leaders in charge for resolving disputes through constitutional framework for diplomacy of the conflict resolution. Jai Mata Saraswati. And the approach paper to understand the factors responsible for the recently emerged armed conflict between Russian Federation and its former allied member country Ukraine to identify the responsible factor and exploring avenues for formulation of memorandum of understanding for its resolution through administration of partnership agreement. In the context like during January 2020 to January 2022, there were extreme catastrophe globally. During this COVID-19 period, all kind of international business were harshly affected. Almost all mode of international aquatic transportation like waterways, terrestrial or land-based. Definition: it is a Latin word. It means through land or belonging to the land. And aerobic transportation like Airways were interrupted to control the speedy transmission of the potential pathogenic strains of consistently mutating strains of coronavirus as per the life cycle based approach explained by World Health Organization. During this period, international transit restrictions were imposed. However, almost all kinds of the global trade and international cooperation agreement for procurement, acquisition and supply of essentially required commodities like food supplies, medical instruments, drugs, and vaccines were classified into the list of essentially required resources. And the reference like United Nations Commission on Life-Saving Commodities for Women and Children. The Commission described into the report of United Nations Commission on Life-Saving Commodities for Women and Children published by UNFPA advocates for increasing availability and access to appropriate use of essential medicines, medical devices and health supplies that effectively address leading avoidable causes of death during pregnancy, childbirth and childhood. Global economy suffered from several hurdles during this period. The fifth recommendation of the report published by UNFPA in 2012 recommended for ensuring regulatory efficacy for every woman, every child countries to standardize and streamline their registration requirements and assessment process for 13 life-saving commodities with support from stringent regulation authorities, the World Health Organization and regional collaborations. In addition, like mobile health, M-Health solutions have led to improved forecasting and stock out reporting like C-Stock, SMS for Life and ILS Gateway, as well as increased demand and care seeking associated with texting of health information and appointment reminders like Mobile Alliance for Maternal Action. And listed essential commodities are described as follows. It is mentioned into the table of the report. The technical working group of the Commission has proposed the following 10 recommendation actions to deliver on the promises of saving the lives of millions of women and children. The improved markets for life-saving commodities like shaping global markets by 2013, it was proposed that the effective global mechanism such as pooled procurement and aggregated demands are in place to increase the availability of quality life-saving commodities at an optimal price and volume. The shaping local delivery markets was to be controlled by 2014, and local health providers and private sector actors in all EWAC countries are incentivized to increase production, distribution and appropriate promotion of certain commodities. And the reference that enabling transport of essentially required commodities through landways from nearby production unit would reduce the environmental impact. Recently, World Health Organization has proposed to establish a pharmaceutical production and training institute in Asian countries, and the video link refers about the same. As per the existing equilibrium of the cooperation of the Russian Federation with China, India, Pakistan and other countries of Caucasus, Russian Federation aspires for usual support and cooperation with Ukraine. The mediation or coordination of UNFPA chapters would bring positive solutions so that transportation of essentially required commodities could also be ensured through landways. The Indian Air Force Chief have highlighted about the concerned issue for regulation of the airways transportation challenges and required collaboration to resolve it. Similarly, such concerns ought to be focal point of concern for Air Force Chief of respective nations. Added with this, challenges of transmissibility of the diseases through airways are also responsible for imposition of the restrictions and regulations of the airspace of the respective territory. And the WHO could be referred to understand about this. UNFPA, UNICEF are also helpful. And the rationale is that UNGA and EU chief have urged President Putin to not attack onwards. Both organizations are corresponding with countries involved into the conflict disputes, Russian Federation and Ukraine, regarding adherence about issues or topics identified and discussed and passed into the resolution of the recently held Munich Security Conference and a special United Nations General Assembly session, and abide with the briefings of the recently held Security Council meeting through adopting means of communication for discussion under the ambit of United Nations Charter. The video link is available here. And the objective was to ensure the safety of the life of the fellow inhabitants of Ukraine and Russian Federation. And the way forward explains that with reference to the consolidated perspective of NATO and European Union, as expressed during this press briefing, the Secretary General of NATO, Secretary General of EU expressed their overwhelming humanitarian offers to the inhabitants of the war-affected region of the Ukraine if they require displacement as refugee. There is a sensitive reference, like during the ISIS war, the Chancellor of Germany, working with her, then had offered similar humanitarian support to the victims of war, and the full horror of the human tragedy unfolding on the shores of Europe was widely discussed, and an image of the lifeless boy of young boy, one of the least 12 Syrian who dropped attempting to reach the Greek Iceland, of course, have encapsulated the extraordinary risk refugees are taking to reach the West was widely circulated, and information are available on this link. And the way forward should be like Russian Federation could also discuss through establishments of communication with Ukraine by mediation of the executive head of the member countries of NATO and or European Union for signing and exchange of documents of certification for declaration of ceasefire. And the priorities plan of action of World Health Organization should or must be taken into the account for the sake of the humanity. This would bring positive resolution to the